Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the June 2024 MSMF Client Podcast. I'm joined, as always, by my colleague, Cody Redding.
Hello.
And Mr. Jay Peters. Jay,
what's up?
How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Hey, the cicadas.
We're almost done, right?
Lots of them.
There's a lot less of them. Fat, dumb, and happy birds this year. I know that much. So, all right, let's dive right into it. So, Jay, you came up with a fantastic idea for us. We're going to talk today about legacy planning. Okay? I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is, and I'm going to have you guys go into kind of the details of what the goals are of a legacy plan and then some specific strategies. Right? So let's first start with what is it, okay? We hear it referred to as legacy plan. Sometimes we hear it referred to as giving plan. Mm-hmm. You know, ultimately it's taking the assets on your balance sheet and determining either while you're alive or after you die and hopefully go to heaven on a rocket ship, where your assets go and who's going to give them, okay? And we talked about this, and it's kind of funny. Jay made it funny, but it's actually true. The obvious ones, kids and grandkids, right? We have a lot of clients and go through various strategies there. Charities, things that people are passionate about. And then there's this others category. So sometimes a very common one is other relatives. If people don't have kids of their own or grandkids, there's other relatives they may make gifts to. As well as we see another example lately coming up is pets, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, that's beyond really the details of this conversation, but you can do it. There is a way to do it. It is actually a little bit more complicated because they're not a human being in terms of how we give to pets, but we're probably not going to get into that today. The one thing I will say, and I know, Jay, you're going to get into this relative to the goals, there is a big difference between while you're alive versus after you die. And I know you're going to dive into that, and there's some practical reasons for both. But there's also some emotional and philosophical reasons for both. So sure. Kind of with that as a setup, Jay, why don't you get into it for us? In generally, what are the goals of a legacy or giving plan?
Yeah, so going back to the what is this? This is getting your stuff to someone else, right? Mm-hmm. And there's different goals that you should be thinking about to do that, right? Best practices, those sorts of things. But the one that we help try and bring a lot of perspective and a lot of guidance on is what's the best way to do that to be tax efficient with that. Because there's a lot of missteps you can take in trying to give something to someone else that causes unintended taxes, basically, if you're not setting it up right, or if it's not titled the correct way, or if you do it at the wrong time, or all those different things. So I think that's kind of a minefield that we really try and help the most with.
Absolutely.
A second thing that we talked to a lot of our clients about is just trying to keep the family peace. Mm-hmm. Because even in the closest families, there can be disagreements about what someone intended to happen, right? So that's why we kind of really encourage making sure everything's written down. Oh, and then the other part of it, you should probably tell them about it too. Mm-hmm. Because even if everything's written down, sometimes we see disagreements there too. So we're trying to just keep the family peace and make sure that everybody feels like they got their fair. I put fair in quotes.
Fair share.
I put in quotes because fair doesn't necessarily mean equal.
Right.
And so, but a lot of times when we're trying to pass down things or pass to someone else or pass it around, however it's being passed, that it's keeping the family peace. Right.
Yeah, and I would say just to add to that, we've all seen it, and all of our clients have seen it. Money can make people kind of crazy sometimes.
Sure.
And it can take very close families and turn them into not so close families. And I like your point about communication because, you know, we all have clients who, by design, their kids don't know everything that's going on with their personal financial situation. At some point in everyone's life, that needs to be communicated to their heirs. Even if today is not the day, at some point, you know, while people are still can actively, you know, describe those things and talk to their kids or their heirs, it needs to happen.
I got a question for you. Mm-hmm. Do you have like if this, then this is the time to do that?
It's a great question. I think that the thing that drives it the most is the family dynamics. Right, in terms of, you know, not only the relationship between the family members, sometimes the financial success of each family member is, or not so much success, is important to have these conversations because, you know, sometimes you'll have a sympathetic parent who wants to do more for one child than the other, the person that's most suitable to explain that to a child that may be getting less is the parent, not you, not me, not Cody.
Good point.
Right. So I think it's a great question, and it really is driven by the family dynamics and where everyone kind of is in their life.
So to summarize, it could be different for everybody.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. And then you said something else that is another point I wanted to bring up of why, what type of legacy do you want to leave, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you need to be gone.
Right.
You could also create a strategy that's giving things to your heirs, your kids, grandchildren, whoever, while you're here too. And so there's some good ways to do that, maybe missteps of things people do as well as, and so that's another thing we like to talk about. Hey, do you want to maybe help with, grandkids' college or something like that?
Yeah, I think psychologically, and I know you guys do the same thing, urge people to, hey, enjoy, particularly if it's kids or grandkids, enjoy watching them get it while you're alive, as opposed to waiting until you're gone and they get all this money. And, for the most part, they're going to be sad.
Right.
And they probably would have preferred to have a little bit of it while you were alive to enjoy it with you as well. So I think it's a great point.
Yeah. Okay, and then another one, I think this one's really important. I just wrote, do good, right? Do good. I think that's a big legacy for a lot of people, and that's something that's important to them. So whether it is a charity, whether it is within their family, whether it is something that they're passionate about, right? I feel like that is a really important box to check too. And keeping in mind. And again, there's really good ways to do it that Cody's going to talk about, and then maybe ones that we might avoid. Right?
Yeah, and I would say that the tax code hasn't done us any favors. Charities are finding it harder and harder and harder to raise money. So, I know that we always enjoy hearing our clients who have charities that they identify that they want to give money to, and there's ways like out of your IRA, which Cody will talk about, that you can do while you're alive, and it doesn't have to all go to one charity. But again, we encourage charitable beneficiaries at some point, or charitable donations, either alive or when you're gone, just because it's so hard for these places that people are so passionate about to raise money anymore.
Yeah. All right, and then one of the last couple things we wrote down here too was also liquidity for their heirs. So again, it kind of goes back to some of the strategies we're going to talk about, but sometimes the way things might be titled or how they're invested or how they're sitting now, it's maybe not the best way to get it to the next generation or however you're trying to transfer it. So a couple strategies to talk about what's the best way to pay for taxes on these different things or get it to the next person, right? That's what I had. We also had control of distribution of your assets. What does that mean?
Well, that means, let's see, in my case, I am going to control my estate from the grave, sir. My daughters will get periodic payments out of my estate. And the main reason for that is not that they're not good financially. They're very young. I got one of them just starting out, Rosie, in her career in nursing in Nashville, and Gracie still has her senior year of undergrad and then a year of graduate school. Not that they couldn't handle the money, but, for instance, life insurance proceeds, they can get those, but I kind of rather put them in my trust and pay them out over time until they're really ready. Now, if they were in their 30s or 40s, that's a different story, but they're not. So that's kind of the control of the distribution of your assets. You can literally control it from the grave. Or if you're giving away, to your point, during your lifetime, you control when that gift is made. So it can work both ways.
I like it. So lots of different goals. There's no one plan for anybody. It's just really what's important to the person.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Cool. Great, Jay. I like the goals, and it is very specific to the individual, much like the family dynamics, but it's important, and we have those conversations all the time. And once you go through the goals, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, my man.
Lots of ways.
And I know with all of these, we were joking before, this could be a 3-hour podcast, so we're going to touch on the top level. And some of these things may resonate with our clients, and obviously I'll encourage at the end for anybody to reach out to any of us or anybody in the office to talk through these. But there's a lot of strategies.
Yeah, tons. So we talked about, or Jay talked about, number one, a lot of people are familiar with just giving a direct gift to somebody. Okay, so what's the best way to do that? You have the timing of doing it while they're living, so you get to enjoying the gift that you gave them.
I'd really enjoy the cash out of your wallet right now.
And I bet you would. And the thing with that is, a lot of people aren't aware is that you have your annual exclusion limit. I believe it's 18,000 this year, so it goes up with inflation. But you can give a direct gift to somebody 18,000 per person, per individual. So if you got a kid that's married, you can give your kid 18. You can give the spouse 18. Your wife can give the kid 18, and so on. So you can give quite a bit of money to people while they're living, and there's nothing that has to be filed with it.
Right.
So there's no taxation, and on top of that, if you give over 18,000, there's not necessarily any taxable event. You just need to record it when you do your taxes.
Correct.
Because believe it or not, a lot of people listening here today they don't have a estate or gifting problem because it's 13 million per person, a little bit over that.
Right.
So over 26 million per couple. Now, as we know, I've been doing this since 2008. I think that law itself, that number has changed like 4 times. So It's gone down to 0. It's gone down to unlimited, and anywhere in between. So
It's going to change again on January 1st, 2026.
It's going to get cut in half, basically. Yeah. So we can only plan how it is today, and kind of put that to the future. So anytime there's tax law changes, it kind of upsets every strategy that we put in place. But on top of that, you don't necessarily have to have a foundation set up or an expensive trust set up or a lot of money to take advantage of, types of gifting strategies.
Sure.
Probably the number one most used one that we see from our clients is doing a qualified charitable distribution. And that's gifting money from your IRA. You have to be age 70 and a half or older. You can give $100,000 out of your IRA to a charity of choice without having to pay any taxes on it, which is a great vehicle because, as you talked about, with the standard deduction so high, a lot of people can't afford to give or take a deduction for a charity they give. Well, you can directly out of your IRA.
Right.
There are a lot of nuances with that. So, like, for example, you can't send it from your 401k and have it be a QCD. It has to come from an IRA. Donor advised funds, I think those have gained a lot of popularity because of the ease of use of them now and the fact that standard deduction is so high for people. For more high-end strategies or people that have a little bit more money that they want maybe a little bit more control over that charitable giving, there's Charitable Remainders Trust, is probably the most popular one out of them. But there's all sorts of ways that you can distribute either income or give a gift of money and get a big deduction on it today in your taxes.
Right.
So getting money out of your estate, essentially. Excuse me. Other areas that you might look into is if maybe you've gotten lucky and you have a really highly appreciated stock. You can actually gift that to a charity and not take on that tax burden that's with it.
Those nasty capital gains.
Or if you hold on to it, you should get a step up in basis on it when it goes to your heirs. Same thing with real estate. Same idea type of situation. Highly appreciated real estate is something you'd want to gift while you're living because you don't have the tax burden with it, or you hold on to and your heirs get the step up. Excuse me. And then there's actually tons of strategies using life insurance. And, life insurance is a good vehicle for charitable giving because it's the leverage of money and it provides instant liquidity. So, Jay mentioned some goals about strategies where liquidity is in play. Where that comes in often is land. Our farm gets passed on, and that could be worth $25-50 million. Well, guess what? You're going to have a big tax bill, so that insurance provides the liquidity to pay that tax bill, not have to sell the land that you got, or a business, or it could be any sort of thing that is just not easily sellable, right? And the timing of the gift. So you kind of talked about this. So giving money while you're living, absolutely can do that. A lot of these strategies actually that's what they're used for. But most importantly, a lot of people create a trust and they forget to fill up the trust.
Empty bucket.
They empty bucket. They think because they have, and it makes sense that because I have a trust, that's where the stuff goes. No, you actually have to name the stuff in the trust. What's the number one thing people forget? They create the trust and they don't put their house in the trust.
Yep.
Right. And then it goes through probate. But controlling, anytime you have something in your mind, like, okay, like your instance, I want to, give the money to my girls, but under certain ages, I want to have their access to it is not 100%.
Right.
And really, the only way you're going to accomplish that is getting the trust set up, and that's where it becomes really important to have that. I did that for my girls, and that will change as they get older.
Sure, always does.
So, but yeah, just know there's tons of other strategies out there. Heck, we didn't even go into converting IRA money to Roths, depending on the size of the estate and the taxable income bracket that your kids are in versus you're in. Like I said, it's kind of unlimited from that standpoint.
Yep, I agree. But you're right. There's a lot of strategies. And I appreciate you going through as many as you did. There's even more. But real quick, it sounds like there are some kind of fundamental strategies. Mm-hmm. And then depending on the goals that are set forth, there's some more advanced strategies that we've used.
Yeah, so, getting estate planning lawyers involved and setting up charitable remainder trust, those types of things. While they're expensive, because usually you have a pretty sizable estate to where that cost is insignificant of
right.
what it's saving you on the taxes.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, thanks.
Absolutely.
Final thoughts, Mr. J?
Yeah, for me, so, we talked about goals and we talked about these different strategies. And I think it's important to know that even if we sit down and we talk about this and we kind of figure it out for today, that could change in months, especially over years or over time. So it's something that should always be reviewed and thought about. And the changes, your situation could change, but also tax code could change. So internal and external factors could make you want to keep reviewing it. So, don't think that it's a one and done. It's always something to keep thinking about and figuring out.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jay, because it's just like the overall financial blueprint that we create for clients. A legacy plan or a giving plan is a part of that. Mm-hmm. And it's a kind of a living, breathing document because, again, we know one thing, the IRS is going to make changes or Congress is going to force IRS to make changes, and that impacts everything within a financial blueprint, including a legacy plan. So it is a living, breathing document that we have to continue to evolve and make sure it continues to reflect clients' goals because sometimes the goals change. Right? So to Cody's point, eventually, his girls will be old enough to handle his stock trading winnings.
Yeah.
And his trust will evolve. So even if your legacy plan is just straightforward to your kids, it still changes based on their ages, based on tax code, and you start to involve charities, other things, pets. Things can get a little bit more advanced. All right. Super. Well, I appreciate everyone joining us today. If you have any questions on your giving plan or your legacy plan, please reach out to Cody, Jay, myself. Shoot us an email. Give us a call. Use our text line, specific number for that, which will be in the podcast. Just reach out to us and share this with your friends or family because this is often, for a lot of people, an overlooked part of their overall financial blueprint. And enjoy the rest of your relatively cicada-free June. And maybe with cicadas dying out, the Cardinals will actually get a little hotter and try to push their way closer towards first place. So thanks, fellas. See you guys next month.